Right, everybody, we are currently up to issue number. Ooh, what is this? Issue number 9, Painting Guide 5. So, for those of you who've been watching my channel, you'll be aware that I did a palette swap on the Tyranids and the Space Marines. Just so that my tutorials, for want of a better word, they're not really tutorials, I don't think, but you know, are basically just different really from the bog standard stuff. But we're up to kind of Retributor Armour and Abaddon Black on our painting. And there's no other way to put it, because my Space Marines are a Codex compliant chapter. They use the same kind of heraldry, trims and things that the Ultramarines do. And on top of that, although these are the Emperor's Sons, which I probably mentioned, I've decided are there's no other way to put it, a kind of almost forbidden chapter, in the sense that they are actually using gene seed of a traitor marine. And if you understand what the traitor marines were, they were the sons, the the rebel legions during the Horus Heresy, and it's inferred definitely within the lore that basically Belisarius Kroll, when he was making the Primaris, was a bit naughty and used their gene seed. These are an Emperor's Children successor chapter. Now, part of that also means that they should, as a rule, actually be ostentatious. Basically, gold suits where I'm coming from, basically. I don't actually have any Horus Heresy Emperor's Children yet. It's one of my next painting aims, so I shall be doing them quite soon as well. So what we need to do on this, to put it as simply as possible, is we need to get the gold trims done. Now, I'm using just a Games Workshop brush here, a small layering brush. It's quite a good little brush. I tend to use synthetic brushes for metallics, and I tend to use the non-synthetics, which are, you can differentiate between them having black handles, basically. I just find, for some reason, I've always found that metallics work better and cause less damage to the brush if you use a synthetic. But I've also found that with synthetic brushes, they just get stained when you use other types of paint, particularly if you're doing a big batch job. That just could be me being rubbish at taking care of my brushes, but I don't think it's exclusive to me. That I think that's but it is how I prefer to do things. Okay, and I am attempting to thin my paint out as I go along, which is why my wet palette is next to me to help me out. And this is all I'm really doing. I'm focusing on the trims, on the Aquila, on the front of the armour. Well, I say Aquila, but it's not got the eagle head. I'm wondering if the skull has a specific name, but usually it's just the Aquila. But I'm just kind of curious if a skulled Aquila is technically something different. I don't remember reading up on it in any lore at any point. Oh no, gold in the wrong place. This is another good reason to thin your paints, because if you accidentally get it in the wrong place, it's easier to quickly wipe off, particularly if you've thinned with water. I have accidentally gone over here. I'm not over worried about it, to be quite honest, because I can fix that up. That's one of the positive things about doing what's known as the heavier metal style of painting, because you're dealing with blocking out solid colours. If you make a mistake, I've personally found it's a lot easier to go back and fix. This little thing here as well. Right, so we're getting there. Right, now what I'm going to do next, just making sure I got behind that gold, that little thing there. I have no idea what that is, some kind of lucky totem or something that he's carrying with him for reasons. Okay, so that's your kind of your gold. You're going to have to do the same two areas of this. So it's Terminator armor, but for the most part, you block the gold in pretty much the same core places. Just look for places that look like obvious trims. Try and take your time, don't rush yourself. You might find that you need a second layer if it looks too streaky. I have to admit, the Retributor Armour colour that we get with this, I find that as a gold, it's actually a very good gold. Golds in the past used to be a nightmare for putting straight on, and you usually had to, depending on what kind of colour gold you wanted, so if you wanted it vibrant or toned down, it was always a good idea to put it over silver. If you do it right over silver, actually, if you go straight over silver and do it correctly, you will kind of end up with you know, like the edges kind of already highlighted if you do it correctly. So it is sometimes worth putting a layer of, say, lead belcher down before you try and put the gold on. But because I am kind of very strictly following the tutorials that have been laid out, kind of following the pattern that I've been shown as well, just kind of make sure that you're picking out any key important details. So, you know, like this sword here, I'll push those guys out of the way because I think my camera's kind of focusing on them now and then when I don't really want them to be in focus. And again, it's always just about having patience and taking your time. Don't get me wrong, I am actually notorious for having poor patience. I've been informed my inability to be both hyper focused and yet somehow simultaneously unable to finish what I've started. Maybe because I have ADHD that's not been diagnosed. So I find painting is a good thing for me because I would like things to look good, and this kind of forces me to finish. And I like painting, strangely enough, in the way that Combat Patrol is forcing me to paint, rather than trying to do a whole model all at once. I'm finding it so much easier to focus on one thing at a time, take a breather, and come back to the model later on. And it seems actually to be working. Unfortunately, it's why I'm never going to be a professional painter, because professional painters need to be able to do a job instantly. You know, just take your time so you can get into the little details. I wish my son would join me in painting as well. He'll play with me, but he just won't focus on painting. I keep telling to him it'll help focus his mind. You know what? We can't really judge for people. He is who he is. I am who I am, and that's it, isn't it? I was painting my termagants up the other day, and I was tempted to edit out the thing that he did, but basically he started coming in and decided to distract me, and I thought, you know what, I'll just leave that in to prove that I'm not working in a peaceful environment. And unfortunately, on top of that, I'm also suffering from a bad cough, which my wife brought home from work just before Christmas. And over Christmas, we all caught clear signs of COVID. And then my wife, because she works as a nurse, has now brought something else lovely home for everyone to be infected by. You can't win when you are a public service family, nurse and teacher, the child in a school, because you're all just bringing home all the yuck. Almost done with the gold part, and then I'll move on to the black. You know, I just want to kind of show that I am pretty much following how the tutorials are laid out, and you can see I'm not using like anything special as far as brushes are concerned. You know, this is just a standard Games Workshop one. I know it never came with it, but you know, it is the kind of brush that you can just go and grab hold of easily. I think what I need to do now is I need to just kind of wash off my brush because the paint's drying in it. Sometimes it is just worth stopping, clean up your brush before you start again, because the more the paint dries into it, the more it frays. No. It's coming along. What else have I not done? I feel like, you know, I'm not even on the black yet, and I need to be, because that's part of the tutorial as well. Yeah, he's looking good. Right. Oh, I feel like my spine is dying now, though. Gosh, this is very uncomfortable. Trying to look where else on here that we should be doing a bit of gold. I think this skull on here is supposed to be gold on that side, and obviously the one on this side. And then I think just around the top of this, so tempting to just rush sometimes when you're doing stuff like this. Right, and I think that's the gold part. So basically you're doing that across all your models, whether or not you're doing them as ultramarines or a different chapter. If you're chapter compliant and this is your first company, that's your gold done. Now, I think I'll end the video there because it's going on for a kind of 20-minute point, and then I'll move on to do the black in the next video.